Hello beautiful people, how are you doing? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be showing us how to make this beautiful dress. Okay, so right here on my table I have my fabric, and to show us clearly, this is the style on my catalog. Okay, so it's an off shoulder 6 pieces dress that has a slant with a peplum at the waistline, okay, towards the knee line, right? So I've used my fusible interfacing, okay, gum stay to give my fabric some weight. Then I'll be marking my starting point. Okay, so this margin would be from where I'll take all my vertical measurements. Now for the off shoulder, I want to do a -4, okay, because as you can see, it's not so off. Okay, the off shoulder is not so deep, so I'm doing -4. Then from that 4 inches, I'll mark my bust point. So this is how to take your bust point from the top of your shoulder to the top of your nipple. So whatever I have as your bust point, add half inch to it. So I have 10 inches as my bust point, then I marked 10.5. So then the next thing is to take your under bust, and it's from the shoulder to under your brow wire. You can see that picture of how to take the under bust measurement. Also add half inch allowance to it. Then the next thing would be your half length plus half inch. Okay, now afterwards you can now mark the length you want for this top, including the fact that we're going to be adding some inches for that slant. So I made 30 inches. Okay, so I want it to be 30 inches long, okay, so that my slant would come out very well. All right, so I've marked that point, and I'll just draw them out in a straight line. Okay, so that's my half length. Now this right here is my bust point, then this is the under bust. Okay, so the next thing will be to mark the chest line, and the chest line is derived by dividing your bust measurement by 6 plus 2 inches. Okay, so that right there is my chest line. So whatever value you get from dividing your bust measurement by 6 plus 2 inches, you mark that there and also rule out the line. That is called your chest line. Okay, so I have all my lines now, so I'll label: this is chest line, this is bust point, this is under bust, and this is half length. Okay, so we are starting from the scratch. All right, so this is the length we want, and it's 30 inches. Remember, we took out 4 inches. Okay, so we'll start drafting properly now. All right, so you need your calculator and your measurement. Okay, so on the chest line, I'm marking quarter of the bust measurement. When I say quarter, I mean the bust measurement divided by 4. Then I add 2 inches seam allowance. Then on the waist, okay, I also mark the waist divided by 4 plus 2 inches seam allowance. Then from the half length, you're going to mark on the length of the blouse. You're going to mark your hip measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches. Okay, so another thing you can do is to take your hip measurement. All right, so I'll connect from the chest line to the half length. Now before I connect to the hip, I'll take my hip measurement. Now from the half length to the hip is 8 inches for this project. Okay, so that's my hip line right there. So I'll also take quarter of the hip measurement on that hip line, okay, from 2 inches. This is give us a proper shape. All right, so I'll connect, make my hip curve, then bring it down to the length of the blouse. All right, so this is what we have. All right, my basic bodies, and I've added my 2 inches side seam allowance. Now we'll start making the bustier. Okay, it's an off shoulder bustier. Right, we need your nipple to nipple measurement, and this is how to take it. Okay, from one point of the nipple to the other point. So my nipple to nipple is for this project is 7. That's divided by 2 is 3.5. You add 1 inch, half inch to it, and that's 4. So I'm marking 4 inches on the bust point, under bust, half length, the hip line, and the length of the blouse. Now to the shoulder line, I'll add 1 inch to whatever I have as the bust span measurement. The bust span is also the nipple to nipple measurement. Okay, so while I have 4 from the bust point down to the length, at the shoulder point I have 5 inches. Okay, so that's what I am explaining now. Right, so you can see I have a bit of curve at the upper part. Right, so on the under bust, I'll take 1.5 inches towards the side front. 1.5. I'm working with bust 38.5, so the bust chart for it is 1.5. Then towards the center front, I'm taking a dart of 1 inch on the under bust, the half length, and on the length of the blouse. So I'll connect from the under bust to the length in a straight line. Okay, from the under bust to the length, I'll connect in a straight line. Okay, like so. Right, so then for the bust point, I come down by 1 inch and also go up by 1 inch. So I'm going to make my bust curve now. So I'm using the curvy part of my ruler. I'm going to connect in a curve from the 1 inch that we came down with and connect it to the under bust. The same thing for the side front. Okay, so I have so many tutorials on my channel on how to make a bustier, but I like to also do this from scratch so that those of us that are joining us for the first time can also understand everything I am doing. Now at the shoulder point, I'm taking 1 inch towards the side front and half inch towards the center front. And this is because the bust is fuller at the side front. Okay, that's why we always take bigger darts at the side front. Okay, so I connect it to 1 inch above the bust point. Okay, then I'm going to curve it properly to give us that beautiful bust curve shape that we are looking for. All right, so it's now to replace all my darts. So at the under bust, I'll replace my 2.5 inches that I took for that. The same thing for the length of the blouse. I took 2.5 inches that. Remember, 1.5 towards the side front and 1 inch towards the center front. Okay, then I also mark 1 inch for joining the darts. Remember, I'll need 1 inch to join the darts together when I cut it out. Okay, so on the chest line, I also measure the dart that I have there and also mark my 1 inch darts for sewing, one inch for sewing the darts. Okay, so instead of having this slant line, I'll just take it up to the chest line so that we'll have, a beautiful line. Afterwards, we can always shape. Then at the shoulder line, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder minus 1.5. That's how you get the neck width for your off shoulder. So the shoulder here is 7. The half of the shoulder is 7. 7 minus 1.5 would give us 5.5. Okay, so I'll mark 5.5. Okay, so we have 5.5, then plus the 1.5 inches that I took, then 1 inch to replace to cut out to sew that after cutting. Then I'll slant it to the chest line. So that's what I did there. Okay, my 5.5 inches plus 1.5 inches that I took, that's 7. Okay, so that's why I marked 7 at the shoulder line. Now please don't make the mistake of slanting your I'm just going to show you what to do now. Okay, so from the half length to come down by 3 inches, that's for that slant. Okay, but while you can see my student, one of my students, you can see her hands, her fingers from this video. Now when I asked her what do you think I should do to get that slant, she said after coming down from the half length by 3 inches, I should slant it to the length of the blouse. Okay, so that's what anybody that it's a beginner would think, but please don't do this. Okay, don't slant like so. You have to open this, or you have to cut this out, sew them together before you can make the slant. Okay, and that's not just how to make the slant. All right, so I'll cut out my dart, so I'll show us what to do next. After cutting out the dart, I'll go and pad and couple the front pattern together. Also cut out my lining the same way I've cut out the front part. Now we want to draft the back. Now on the back, I've drafted my basic body just like I did for the front. Okay, so I'll just explain. That's my zip allowance. Then I've marked the basic body, half of the bust measurement plus 2, quarter of the bust measurement, quarter of the waist plus 2, quarter of the hip plus 2. Okay, so the next thing would be to take my bust span, and that's the line you are seeing that is running at the midpoint. Okay, so the same thing that I did for the front, I added 1 inch to that of the shoulder, then I connected. Then on the half length, I took a dart of half inch on both sides, and on the shoulder level I also took half inch on both sides. Then from the hip line, I went up by 2 inches before I connected the dart. Okay, so that is how I got the dart for the back. Then I'll go and make my upper part. So remember we did our half of the shoulder minus 1.5, so that is 5.5 plus 1 inch dart and another 1 inch to couple the dart. Okay, so right now I'm replacing my dart. I have a dart of 1 inch at the chest line plus 1 inch to couple it back. The same thing on the half length, 1 inch dart and 1 inch to couple it, and the same thing around this part. I just want to mark the 1 inch because we're not you don't have any dart at the lower part. Okay, so I'll slant from the shoulder line to the chest line, then we cut out. So you can see the neckline for this dress is pretty straight, both for the front and the back. Okay, so I'll cut out like so. Okay, cut out my dart, my armhole, and that is it. So what I'll do next would be to slash through the zip allowance. Then afterwards, I'll notch the zip allowance up and down. Okay, so I'll also notch the upper part so that you would know when you are joining, okay, that that's the upper part, so that you don't misplace, you don't misplace it. Okay, so I'll also give it another notch so that when you are joining, you know that's the upper part. Then at the at the midpoint, okay, I also notch it so that when you're joining, you will know that you know where to join from. You don't join from the zip allowance. Okay, so I'll go and cut my lining for the back and also join. Right, so this is my 6 pieces skirt. Okay, I have a detailed tutorial on my channel here on how to cut a 6 pieces skirt. Okay, so I'll drop the link in the description box. So these are the back panels for the 6 pieces dress, 6 pieces gown, abi skirt. I've joined the back, and this is the front. I've also joined. So join the front separately, join the back separately. Okay, watch the video on how to cut a 6 pieces skirt. Okay, so you join the front separately and join the back separately. All right, so this is my center front. Okay, I've padded and I've joined the side panels to the center panel. Okay, so this is what I have. Okay, I have a tutorial on my channel on how to pad and couple, so you can see my padding. Okay, so what you just do is to give it a proper ironing, which I have not done. Okay, so but I'll give it a good press. Now what I'll do next would be to start making the slant line. Okay, for the style line that we have. So that this is my, so from the half length I'll come down by 3 inches. Okay, so you can see my half length and I came down by 3 inches. Now what I'll do next would be to mark half inch downwards after my half length. Okay, so that would be seam allowance to join. Okay, so then what I'll do next would be to slant from that half inch downwards. You can see the slant line. Okay, you can see the slant line. So what I'll do would be to slant from the half inch downwards. Okay, then I also measure what I have. This is my hip length. Okay, this is my hip line. I measure what I have for the hip line, and it's 5 inches from the hip line to the length of the blouse. It's 5 inches, and this is intentional. Okay, so depending on how long you want, you can do 3 inches, you can do 4 inches, depending on what you want. So this is 3 inches. You can even do 3.5 because you'll be needing half inch to join. Okay, so you can do 3.5 depending on what you want. Okay, so like I said, from 3 inches to 5 inches. That's why I intentionally left 5 inches. Okay, so after your hip line, you can leave 5 inches for the style line. Okay, so then from that 5 inches, you can now choose whether you want to do 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I marked 3.5. You can see almost for 3.5. Okay, so I'll then style. Okay, just to show you, but me, I want to work with 5 inches. That's why I left 5 inches. So from that half inch that we came down from 3 inches after the half length, you use your ruler, the cover part of your ruler, to make the slant line, like so, then you can cut out. Okay, so you can see that if I use 5 inches, the difference wouldn't be so much. I want to use 5 inches. I want the style line to be very obvious. Okay, I want it to be so obvious that there's a style line there. Right, so what I'll do would be to do my slant line to the end of my fabric. Okay, because that's what I originally wanted to do. I just decided to show us what you can do differently. Okay, so this is it. I'll be working with the 5 inches, so I'll then go and trim that off. Okay, so like this, and trim off. So I don't know if you're enjoying this tutorial, but if you are, please give it a like, try to share. If you are not yet subscribed, try to subscribe and turn on your post notifications so that each time I upload a video, you'll be the first to be notified. Okay, so after doing this style line, okay, for the front, for the upper part, you're also going to give that same style line to the skirt part. Okay, so that everything would correspond. So remember, we did 3 inches after the half length. So 3 inches after my half length is 19 inches. Okay, 3 inches after my half length is 19 inches. So I just placed my tape at 19 inches above. Okay, then what I did was to come down by ½ inch, then place the style line on the front on it. Okay, I hope you understand what I'm doing. Okay, just place the style line at ½ inch. I marked ½ inch after the length of the skirt, okay, after the upper part of the skirt. Then I placed my style line on that ½ inch. That ½ inch is for seam allowance to join the skirt part to the upper part. Okay, so I'll use my chalk to trace the style line on the upper bodice like so. Okay, you can see what I'm doing. Just use your chalk to trace the style line like so. So when I take it out, this is what I'll have. As you can see, I have the style line now. Okay, so remember I added ½ inch, okay, at the upper part. I left ½ inch. So what I'll do will be to add ½ inch from that point. Okay, I'll now follow the ½ inch, okay, to give ½ inch seam allowance that I'll use to join the skirt pattern to the upper bodice. Okay, so this is ½ inch, so that's where I'll trim off. Okay, because if you don't leave these allowances after cutting and joining, your fabric or your bodice or your dress will be short. Okay, you won't have what you intended to have at the beginning. Okay, so this is it. Then what I'll go do would be to go and measure this. Okay, measure from one dart leg. Okay, you know this is a 6 pieces skirt, so from this joining, after from the side piece, the middle joining, from this one, I'll measure from that point to my knee, or 2 inches above, or 2 inches below my knee. Okay, then I'll just show you how to join before I talk about the peplum. At that point, you just place it like this, right side facing right side, then you join with ½ inch. So when you join, you have this, right? So like I was talking about the peplum, if you notice on the style line, there is a peplum that runs from this point, okay, the second joining of the 6 pieces skirt, okay, the midpoint, the mid panel. Okay, so I'll just measure from there to the edge of the skirt, then to 3 or 2 inches after my knee line, okay, or even above your knee line, just depending on what you want. Okay, so I'll then measure. What I have there is 31 inches. Okay, so I'll use this 31 inches to cut the peplum. Okay, so I'll use 31 as the circumference to cut the peplum. So what I'll do is to divide 31 by 6.28. Okay, so you can, that's 31 is my knee line, so you can do 3 inches. You can say I marked 3 inches after the knee line. Okay, so if you're making it at exactly your knee line, you can do 31 divided by 6.28. Then the length I'm using for the peplum is 10 inches. So for whatever reason, I did not know my camera wasn't capturing the cutting of the peplum and the joining of the peplum to the skirt. Okay, but I'm going to explain that so that you understand. Right, so I use my lining to turn the upper part and the sides of my upper bodice. Okay, you can see. Then I use 33, okay, because I did 3 inches after 2 inches after my knee length. Okay, so that's 33. So 33 divided by 6.28 give me the radius I want to work with. Okay, then 10 inches for the length of my peplum. Then I doubled my radius, okay, so that I'll have pleats around. You can say I did box pleats. Okay, so if my radius is 3 inches, I made it 6 inches. Okay, if what I got by dividing the circumference that I measured is 3 inches, I made it 6 inches as my radius. Okay, so that I have excess the pleats. I pleated it from 2 inches after my knee line to the midpoint of my 6 pieces skirt. Okay, so after joining it on the skirt itself, then I use the upper bodice to turn. Okay, so that's how I did this. Okay, I hope I explained it clearly for you to understand. Right, so we'll go over to the back pattern. Okay, so I've also joined my back. Okay, I've also lined it and turned. Everything is so neat inside, you can see. So you can see what it looks like. So this is the back panel. Okay, so I have my markings. That is why I marked on directly on my fabric. Okay, but if you're marking, you can try to mark on your lining, but I mark directly on my fabric so that I can see my lines. Okay, when I'm doing this, because it has so many star lines. Okay, so this is the back. So I'll attach the, and these are the skirt patterns. Okay, so you attach them separately. Okay, because the back, we slashed out the back, we slashed open the back, so the back is going to be separate because you'll be attaching the zip in between, right? So remember, we did 3 inches from the half length. Okay, for the front. Okay, so what you can do is to bring the two back panels together, then from the half length you mark 3 inches downwards. Okay, so you can do it together, place it together, make sure that all the sides are matching. Okay, you can make sure that all the sides are matching, or you can do them separately depending. Okay, but I want to do mine separately. Okay, so that when I'm done, I'll use the other one as pattern to cut the other. So remember, we did -4. Okay, now because I've turned the upper part with lining, we now have 4.5. Right, so what I'll do is to mark my half length. So that's my half length, then 3 inches after my half length. That's what I've marked right there. Okay, 3 inches after my half length. Okay, then remember, I marked half inch underneath as seam allowance. Okay, so whatever I did for the front, I'm repeating the same thing to the back. The only thing is that the back will not have a slant. Okay, so what I'll just do is to cut off. Another thing you can do is to get the front pattern, just so that you are sure you are on the right track. Get the front, place it on the back, make sure that the armholes match. Then you can now know the points where you have the joining. Okay, you can see, so it matches with what I have. You can see is matching up with what I have. Then we already sewn with half inch, so that's why I'm leaving half inch to sew. Okay, so I hope you understand. Then I'll just go and trim it off. Okay, because I want the half length for the back and the front to be the same. The difference is that it's not going to have a style line. The back wouldn't have a style line as the front. So after cutting, I'll then place it on the other piece, use it as pattern to cut. Or just to be on the safe side, or you want to be sure, you can retake the measurement on the other pattern and cut. So you know me now, I like to make sure that everything is perfect. So I'll just redo the same thing on this panel, on this pattern. Okay, I'll just do the same thing, cut by myself, just to be sure that I did exactly the same thing. Okay, then I'll cut it off. So when I place it, you can see it's the same thing. Okay, when I place, you can see the same thing, but for whatever reason, I like to be detailed. Okay, so that everything will match up. Okay, so I'll just take it out and go and cut. You can see it matches up. Okay, so we cut. Right, okay, so these are the two back patterns for the upper part. So what I'll do is to just go get the 6 pieces skirt and join them together. Join the 6 pieces to the upper bodice, go and overlock, then attach my zipper to the back. Okay, so I'm pressing them to be sure that everything is properly aligned. You can see that. Okay, very, very important. Okay, because your cutting is what determines your finishing. Okay, so if you don't cut right, you're not going to sew right. Okay, so what I'll do now is to place it like so and go and join. Okay, so I'm having a little bit of excess here because I've not lined my 6 pieces skirt. So by the time I line and use the lining to turn the two sides, I'll have exactly what I have on the upper body. So I'll just go and do those things off camera, join and attach my zip. Okay, so I'm done doing that. Okay, so I've also used my pins to join the front pattern and the back pattern together. Okay, remember I said you should go and join. After joining, you go and attach your zip. Okay, so this is my zip. Now I've placed the front pattern and the back together using my pins to hold them down, and I did the right side facing right sides. Okay, so it's time to take my measurement. So you can see I've lined the skirt pattern. I did short lining for it, I didn't do full lining for this project. Okay, so it depends on your client's preference. Some people like to have their lining very full, some just like to have the lining at the knee line, just so that it's not exposing whatever they're wearing underneath. Okay, so depending on what your client wants. Okay, so this is my client's choice. Okay, so I'll, on the chest line, okay, I'll take my bust measurement divided by 2, okay, and I'll mark that. So whatever I have as difference, I'll divide that by 2 and place it on the two sides. That's how I take my body measurements. Okay, I'll do it for the half length so that you see. On the half length, I'll mark the half length, the waist measurement divided by 2 here, not 4, because I've opened it up. It's just front and back now. So what I'll do is to measure whatever value I have. Okay, and I have 17, okay, as the waist measurement divided by 2. So I'll mark that. Then I also measure what I now have left from that mark. So I have 5 inches left. So I'm going to divide 5 inches into 2. 2.5 here, 2.5 here. So that's how I get the difference, and that's what I use to shape. Okay, I hope I'm explaining this for you to understand properly. So this is how to shape in your garment. Okay, mark whatever you have as your circumference, then whatever you have left, divide it into 2 and share it on the two sides. Okay, on the two side panels. Right, so I also want to do the hip measurement. So from the upper part, we've done -4, so that's minus 4.5 now, because we've turned the upper part with lining. So you're going to mark your half length, then also mark your hip length, okay, and your knee length, so that you can know where to start shaping or how to start shaping from. Okay, so on that point is my hip. So I'll measure what I have as the hip. The hip is 42, divided by 2 is 21, so I've marked 21. Then I'll now measure what I have left. I have around 4.5. So dividing that by 2, I'll share it on the two sides. Okay, I'll mark up of what I divided by 2 on one side, and also mark the same thing on the other side. Okay, then that's how I shape out. Okay, so I will get to the knee, and for the knee, to get your knee circumference, in case you did not take the circumference of the knee on your client, just subtract 6 inches from your hip measurement. So my hip is 42, and I subtract 6 inches, I think I'll have 38, so I divide 38 by 2. Okay, so that's how I get the circumference around the knee. Then depending on what your client wants, if you want it very free around the knee, you can make it free. You can add 1 inch to the sides, okay, for as is. But if you want it tight around the knee, you can do the same thing. Now I want you to know that whatever you have as your knee length, this is my knee length, whatever you have, you're not going to mark exactly on your knee length. You mark 2 inches or 3 inches before your knee length. Okay, all right, I've already done that. Okay, I marked from the knee, okay, from 2 or 3 inches above my knee, and this is so that you can have space to walk. Okay, if you mark directly on your knee line, you won't be able to move freely. Okay, so I've divided. Okay, I've done my hip -6, and divided whatever I had by 2, then added my ease allowance. Okay, so I have 2 inches on both sides to take out. So I'll then curve or shape it inwards like so, then extend it to the length of the skirt like so. The same thing to this other side. Okay, shaping it in, then allow it to flow out. Okay, so this is how I'm going to sew. So I'm going to sew on the markings. Okay, all the markings I've left, I'm going to stitch on them. Okay, and I'll show you what we have. So this is it. Really beautiful, really beautiful. Okay, this is really beautiful. Okay, so you go and give a proper ironing, and you'd see what we have. Okay, so this is the back. This is what everything looks like. Very beautiful. Okay, so towards the upper part, I added my off shoulder sleeve. So this is my off shoulder sleeve pattern. Okay, I also have a tutorial on my channel on how to make an off shoulder sleeve. I also dropped that video. I'll drop the link to the video in the description box. Okay, so you can see that I've added some petals or shape on top of at the shoulder. Okay, so I'm going to show us how to make that. So the length is 5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to get a paper and show us how to do that. Okay, so like I've measured, the length is 5 inches. So on this piece of paper, I'm going to mark 5 inches. Remember, I'll fold into 2 first. Okay, Okay, so that's the starting point. Then I'll mark 5 inches. Then I'll be adding allowances to it, or you can just leave it like that, just depending on the length you want. So I'm marking 5.5 instead of 5 inches. Okay, so depending on the length or the shape or the size that you want. Okay, on the picture that I'm using as illustration, there are so many pattern petals on it, but I just wanted one according to my client's liking. She doesn't want something too much. Okay, so I'm going to measure the width of the petal to show you. So the wideness is around 3 inches. So because this is on fold, I'll then mark the wideness around 3 inches. So I'm not going to just mark 3 inches. You can now mark maybe 2 inches. Okay, because when you now sew with half inch all around, you're going to fall back to 3 inches. So I'm just shaping it like this. Okay, then go and cut out. Okay, so when I open it up, this is what I'll have. Okay, so you can now make it into any shape you want. Okay, you can reduce it, reduce the length, reduce the width. So if I reduce the length, this is what I have. If I want to reduce the width, so depending on the size that you want, okay, you mustn't do what I'm doing. I'm just showing you different things that you can do to achieve yours. Okay, so whatever shape that you want is okay. So what I'll do is to get my fabric to just show you how I made it. Okay, so get the fabric, fold it into two. Okay, then place the pattern on it and cut out like so. Okay, like so. Right, so after cutting, you're going to take it to your sewing machine and go and stitch, face it right side facing right side, then stitch with half inch all the way around it. So I'm just going to go to my sewing machine, sew that, and get back to us. Okay, so I'm done with that, and this is it. So what I'll do is trim off the excess threads, then trim off the seam allowance. Okay, so you're going to trim off the seam allowance so that you'll be left with at least 1/8 of an inch. Okay, before your seam line. You can see how closely I'm trimming it to 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so that you don't have any sharpness around that part, or you don't have any bulginess. You can also notch the lower part, okay, just so that everything will turn out nicely. Okay, so when I turn it out, I flip it to the right side, go and iron, okay, before stitching it to my dress. Okay, so use your scissors to poke into it, just to poke out all the flesh of the fabric inside. Okay, so after this, I'll go and iron. Then what I'll do next will be to conceal the edge. Okay, so I'll just fold in like half inch inwards, like so. You can see, so I've concealed the edges, so it's no longer rough. Then I'll go and place it on my dress. Okay, so let me get a part that doesn't have that. I'll go and place it like this, use my pin to hold it down, then stitch on it. Okay, so that's what I did for all of them. Then I stitched it all round. Okay, round the shoulder, around the shoulder. Okay, so afterwards, this is what you have, but I don't want mine to be plain like this, because you can see my stitch line. Okay, the line I use in stitching this. So I'm going to come in with beads or pearls, so that we can beautify this. So I'm coming in with these pearls and my B6000 gum. You can use your glue gun, you can use uhu gum, so you can use any type of fabric glue that you want. I'm making use of B6000. It's my go-to glue, like it's what I love to use. And when I'm done using this one, I'm going to sample another product of glue to see which one I like best, or which one works best for me. So for now, it's B6000 for me. So I'm just going to squirt a little bit of the gum or the glue on the petal, leave it for like 5 to 10 seconds to air out and dry in a little, then place on your fabric. Don't just squirt the glue on it and just gum it immediately. Just the way shoemakers place gum on your shoe, then allow it to air dry for a little while before they gum it together. Okay, so that's the same thing we are doing here. Just you can even use your God-given AC to blow it, that's your mouth, to blow on it. Okay, so that it will dry faster than you would apply it. Okay, now the difference is that when you just spread the glue on the petal and attach it, you're going to have your petals falling off. Okay, but when you do this, it doesn't fall off so easily. So I'm just going to go and attach it all the way round. So at the end of the day, this is what we have. It came out beautiful, and my client has tried it out, and it's so beautiful. So if you found this video helpful, consider subscribing, like this video, share with your friends, and I'll see you in my next one. So for now, enjoy this beautiful outfit. Okay, this is how everything we've done today came out. I love you. Bye.